This is the western edge of the town of Port Suez, and wherever else the ceasefire is being obeyed, it certainly isn't here. All the while that we've been here, there's been vicious fighting going on amongst blocks of flats on the outskirts of the town. And all the time, while the Israelis are trying to dislodge the members of the Egyptian Third Army, everyone's waiting for the arrival of the United Nations peacekeeping force. The fighting was centered on a housing estate, though I also saw several other parts of the town hit by shell fire. According to Israeli soldiers, they had endured sniping and mortar fire from Egyptian troops all night. Now they were trying to silence those hiding in the flats. In the distance, the steady rumble of high explosives and machine gun fire was the most intense I have ever heard. Three miles to the west, on the main road to Cairo, a lone pair of United Nations observers awaited the peacekeeping force, their white jeep visible for miles. The observers, one from Chile, the other from Argentina, told me it was considered unsafe for them to venture any nearer to the town. About 200 yards away, there were groups of Egyptian dead lying unburied beside the road. From their appearance, they seemed to have died in Israeli airstrikes on the last day of the war. While we waited with the UN observers, two Egyptians wearing civilian clothes walked out of the battle area. They were carrying bread given to them by Israeli soldiers and said they were going to Cairo, about 40 miles away. Almost certainly they were deserters from the beleaguered Egyptian garrison, opting out from a fight which had officially ended days earlier. The Egyptian morale seems to be flagging, judging by the amount of sophisticated Russian equipment falling intact into Israeli hands. This was a complete SAM-2 surface-to-air missile battery, together with launcher vehicles and targeting radar. It was interesting that as well as Russian and Arabic, the maintenance instructions on the side panels were written in English. At midday, with fighting continuing and no sign of the UN peacekeeping force, Israeli armor moved close to the flats. Half an hour later, a Centurion tank opened fire at about 500 yards range. But we weren't able to film any of this because at that point I was arrested and escorted by military police 70 miles out of the battle zone. According to the Israelis, the Egyptian Third Army has ceased to exist apart from pockets of resistance. Yesterday, that resistance was fierce. The tragic irony of it all is that this was on the 5th day of a so-called ceasefire.